Good morning and welcome back to No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Suffering by Thich Nhat Hanh. I'm Ashley Walter. We're picking up on part 4. We've gotten through 1 through 3 a few months ago. It's taken me a while to get back into the recording seat. So take a quick little pause here, find a comfy seat and maybe a warm beverage, and we'll get back to it. Some of the situations and accidents that cause us the greatest suffering, when seen objectively, do not look very big. But because we don't know how to manage them, they feel enormous. If we lose a loved one, that is, of course, a major loss. There is real pain there and we feel it mightily. But we also can spend days worrying that someone doesn't like us, or that we didn't say or do the right thing, or that we won't get the promotion we want. These are small sufferings, relatively speaking, but we magnify them until we seem to take up all of our mind space. If we know how to handle the little sufferings, we don't have to suffer on a daily basis. We can practice letting go of what the French call les petites miseries, the little miseries, and save our energy to embrace and soothe the true pains of illness and loss that are unavoidable. If we know how to handle the little sufferings, pardon me, we've already gone through that part. New section, releasing the arrow. There's a Buddhist teaching found in the Salatha Sutta, known as the arrow. It says, if an arrow hits you, you will feel pain in the part of your body where the arrow hit. And then if a second arrow comes and strikes exactly that same spot, the pain will not only be doubled, it will become at least 10 times more intense. The unwelcome things that sometimes happen in life, being rejected, losing a valuable object, failing a test, getting injured in an accident, are analogs to the first arrow. They cause some pain. The second arrow fired by our own selves is our reaction, our storyline, and our anxiety. All these things magnify the suffering. Many times the ultimate disaster we're ruminating upon hasn't even happened. We may worry, for example, that we have cancer and that we're going to die soon. We don't know, and our fear of the unknown makes the pain grow even bigger. The second arrow may take the form of judgment. How could I have been so stupid? Or fear. What if the pain doesn't go away? Or anger. I hate that I'm in pain. I don't deserve this. We can quickly conjure up a hell realm of negativity in our mind that multiplies the stress of the actual event by 10 times or even more. Part of the art of suffering well is learning not to magnify our pain by getting carried away in fear, anger, and despair. We build and maintain our energy reserves to handle the big sufferings. The little sufferings we can let go. If you lose your job, of course it's normal. It's a normal response to feel fear and anxiety. It is true that in most cases to be out of work is suffering. And there's real danger attached if you don't have enough to eat or can't afford necessary medicine. But you don't need to make this suffering worse by spinning stories in your head that are much worse than the reality. Some people in this situation may think, I'm no good at this or that, or I'll never get another job, or I failed my family. It's important to remember that everything is impermanent. A suffering can arise or can work itself out for anyone at any moment. Instead of throwing good energy away or condemning yourself or obsessing over what catastrophes might be lurking around the corner, you can simply be present with the real suffering that is right in front of you, with what is happening right now. Mindfulness is recognizing what is there in the present moment. Suffering is there, yes, but what is also there is that you are still alive. Breathing in, I know I am alive. Your eyes still work. Breathing in, I'm aware of my eyes. Breathing out, I smile to my eyes. To have eyes in good condition is a wonderful thing because you have eyes in good condition. There's a paradise of shapes and colors available to you at every moment. There are those among us who have gone blind. They've lost that endlessly changing kaleidoscope of shapes and colors. And what they want more than anything is to have that faculty back again. You only need to open your eyes to be in touch with that kaleidoscope. It's a paradise if only you stop to notice and appreciate it. If you have eyes in good condition, just open them and enjoy what you see. Happiness is possible immediately, even if not everything is perfect. When you look at the person you love, he or she is absorbed in anxiety. When you look at the person you love, if he or she is absorbed in anxiety, you can help that person to get out. Darling, do you see the sunset? Do you see the spring coming? This is mindfulness. Mindfulness is for making us aware of what is happening now. Not only are there always conditions of happiness present in me, but there are also all around me. Complexes and the sense of a separate self. Most of the second arrows with which we shoot ourselves come from our beliefs. One basic problem that causes us to suffer is the idea that we are separate, that we are a separate self. This gives rise to the complexes of inferiority, superiority, and equality. As long as we have the idea of a self, we try to protect the self by running away from all kinds of threats and discomforts. There is some loneliness, some anger, or some fear. We don't like it, and we try to pretend that suffering is not there. It's nothing, we say nervously, trying to sweep all of the feelings under the rug. We create unnecessary pain when our reaction to an unpleasant event is to compare ourselves with other selves, reinforcing our illusion of separateness. We may feel a fleeting satisfaction when we tell ourselves, I am better than he is. I don't care what he says. That's the complex of superiority. Or we may try to immunize ourselves from disappointment by thinking, I'll never be as good as she is. There's no point in trying. That's the complex of inferiority. Most people think the best way to deal with these complexes is to maintain the belief, I am their equal. But that is also a complex invented by the comparing mind. Equality, when it refers to opportunity and access to resources, in other words, treating everyone's needs and feelings with respect, is a good thing. But the constant effort to prove oneself equal to all others brings only short-lived relief from the pain of discrimination, and ultimately creates more suffering because it perpetuates our incorrect belief in a separate self. We think, I claim the right to be as good as he is. There is still the idea of a separate self. As long as you continue to compare your suffering from the fear of coming up short, and even worse, you keep yourself trapped in a constant painful delusion of isolation and alienation. Greener Grass, the story of the Buddha and Mara. This is a fantastic story. This story about Buddha meeting Mara illustrates the problem with complexes. In Buddhist stories, Mara is the personification of all depravity and delusion, everything that makes us suffer in life. The Buddha was taking a solo retreat in a cave. His attendant and student, the venerable Ananda, would go out begging for alms, and upon returning would divide his offerings into two, one part for him and one part for the Buddha. One morning, the Buddha was sitting inside the cave in meditation. The venerable Ananda, sitting outside of the cave, saw someone approaching. Ananda had an inkling that this was someone very familiar. It was Mara. Ananda wanted to hide somewhere so that Mara, not seeing anyone, would not approach the cave and disturb the Buddha. But it was too late. Mara walked up to Ananda and asked, "Vulnerable Ananda, is your teacher here?" Ananda wanted to lie and say, "No, the Buddha is not here. The Buddha went to some kind of meeting, conference, or something." But lying is not appropriate for a monk. So he finally said, "Why do you ask?" Mara said, "I want to visit the Buddha." Ananda responded rather scornfully, "Go away. You're not a friend of the Buddha. You're his enemy. Don't you remember how you tried to discourage the Buddha from awakening under the Bodhi tree? And the Buddha defeated you terribly. The Buddha won't see you." When Mara heard that, he laughed. "Ha ha ha, really? Your Buddha has enemies? I thought he said he doesn't have any enemies. Why is it that he has an enemy now?" Ananda was dumbstruck. So he went into the cave to ask Buddha if he wanted to see Mara. Ananda was hoping that Buddha would refuse, but when he heard who was waiting outside, the Buddha said, "Mara, let him in." Ananda was really disappointed, but he was obliged to go out and let Mara in. When Mara entered, the Buddha stood up and welcomed Mara as if he were an old friend. He invited Mara to sit down in a distinguished place and asked Ananda to bring tea and water for Mara to drink. Ananda was really unhappy about it. He would be happy to get tea for the Buddha 200 times a day. But for Mara, Ananda didn't want to do it at all. But he went out and got tea for Mara, hoping that Buddha and Mara would have a short conversation. In fact, the conversation ended up being very long. Buddha and Mara spoke as if they were the best of friends. Buddha said, "Mara, how has it been for you? How are you doing?" Mara said, "Not very well." "What happened?" the Buddha asked. Mara answered, "My disciples aren't listening to me anymore. They used to do everything I told them to, but nowadays they want to rebel. All my generals, all my soldiers, all my disciples, they want to practice mindfulness. They want to practice walking meditation. They want to practice eating in silence. They want to protect the earth. I don't know who got to them. Dear Buddha, I'm just so tired of being Mara. I want to be someone else. Don't think that being Mara is all wild parties, fun, and games." The Buddha laughed. "You think being Buddha is such a lark? Do you know that people say things that I have never said and then say that it is I who said it? They do things I have never done or encouraged them to do, but they say that I encourage them to do those things. I let go of my exalted reputation, my princely position, and an endless availability of sensual pleasures. I abandoned my throne, my beautiful wife and baby, future, children, and wealth, all so that I could realize liberation. But now people come to the temple I pray and plead with me to give them all the very things I have renounced. They don't ask for peace or joy. They just ask for lots of money, power, or for their children to have good grades in their exams. They build a big house and they say it's my house, but it's only a place where people come to pass by and offer food, bananas, sweet rice, and money, so that they can have more money to spend on themselves. They make statues of me and they stick all their money on my body. When they celebrate my birthday, they put my statue up on top of a car and they drive mindlessly through the city while my body rocks from side to side. I didn't ever want to be riding on a car. So don't think that Buddha is lucky. Do you want to exchange places? Ananda was terrified that Mara would agree, but luckily he didn't. And then the Buddha said, "Mara, you do your job. Do your job the best you can. I'll do my job. Nothing is easy all the time. I know being Mara is very difficult, but being Buddha has its difficulties too. Each one of us has to play our part wholeheartedly. Every life has its trials and tribulations. We can navigate them more skillfully when we don't waste time and energy shooting ourselves with a second arrow, such as dwelling on how much greener the grass in our neighbor's yard looks compared to ours." That was section 4 of No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Suffering by Thich Nhat Hanh. And come back again and we will leave off on section 5, 5 practices for nurturing happiness. We'll see you soon.